Good morning, Internet. This is Lama Jigme of the Buddha Joy Meditation School, and welcome to an advanced practice slash Dzogchen class. We shall, let's see, I'm going to go into share screen mode. This is my lovely new image upon my desktop of Red Tata. Lovely, is it not? If you have any questions, write them down in the comment area. If they're a good question, I'll do my best to answer them via video sometime during the week. We shall begin by using the triplet chant. Amanja Lama, perfect protector, who is the centered, spontaneous mind, neither getting nor keeping the desired, as well as enduring the disliked, is universal. Be it causes, conditions, components, or conceptions, independence is but an illusion. Ever changing, one and all, there is nothing permanent to grasp. It is extremely important to make the most of these freedoms and opportunities. Remembering this may my mind ever notice, relax and flow. Now let's chant the essentialization of all four categories of Buddhist vows. The four categories are renunciation, foundation, devotion, and love. So let's jump right in. We'll be using the bookend chant. Non-violently, I practice mindfulness inside as well as love, and apply teachers' advice that all beings may benefit. I'm going to take a quick break while I reach for my space heater. Please bear with me. Let's continue. We'll begin with, a simile I really enjoy and refer to often and often again is that of a grandfather clock, specifically the pendulum of said clock. Just as the pendulum swings to the left and to the right, we're going to swing from contrived contemplations to spontaneous meditation. Why, you might ask? Why not just hang out in spontaneous meditation? Because after a while, the mind will get bored, and that's not a failing. Our brains evolve to swing from playfulness to peacefulness. So when our mind is bored, we do contemplation. When it's ready to relax into the ultimate nature of all things, we do spontaneous meditation. That might seem a little bit obscure, so let us illustrate it with by just jumping right in. We're going to have 4 verbal cycles this week between contrivance and spontaneity. The first of 4 will be dealing with our circumstance, whether it's pleasurable, painful, advantageous, abundant, or scarce. We begin by drawing our attention to the first yellow field, and we're going to touch the tip of our left middle finger to its thumb. I'm sorry, that's my ring finger. Left middle finger to its thumb. Right hand forms a flipper. This helps us to energetically plug into the purification known as mutable water. It's associated with our feet and with the archetype of, or the set of archetypes that can be described as surrendered sagehood. So let's just do a simple mindfulness-inducing contemplation. What circumstance am I now experiencing? This week, instead of intoning or chanting, we're going to be whispering the mantra, just barely loud enough for the tip of our nose or our shirt collar to hear us. We will maintain this finger gesture until otherwise notified. We now start with 5 contemplations. How could this circumstance fail to satisfy? Now you might ask yourself, hey, isn't this a bit negative? But Buddha's path is not one of manifestation or of being positive, it's one of letting go. And one of the tools to help us let go is to explore the actual, if not potential, dissatisfaction inherent in whatever it is we appear to be grasping. How could this circumstance fail to satisfy? Now, these are rhetorical questions. We do not progress on the path through needless skullduggery and trying to answer these questions. We progress on the path by asking these questions in harmony with our in-breath and relaxing to the best of our ability while we whisper the mantra during the out-breath. How could this circumstance be quite dependent? What are some of the things our circumstance can be dependent on? Causes, conditions, components, and conceptions. Ask a physicist, they'll tell you, directly or indirectly, all things are interdependent. All things are affected by each other, and all things affect each other. Sometimes directly, other times indirectly, sometimes immediately, other times eventually, sometimes overtly, other times subtly. How could this circumstance be quite dependent? What's going on in your circumstances right now? Are there things that are frustrating you? Are there things that are frightening you? Are there things that are making you sad? How could this circumstance always change? Because it is the impermanence of things that renders them ultimately non-graspable. How could this circumstance always change? There are many, 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 many things that we could notice as the spontaneous object of our mindfulness. One of the cool things about Buddhist Tantra is they simplify mindfulness by putting into 4 different categories: circumstances, our bodies, our communication, verbal or nonverbal, sent or received, as well as mind, including perception, cognition, emotion, volition, fantasy, recall, and the like. Let's continue with circumstance. Now we get to the nitty-gritty. Whether we know it or not consciously, one of the reasons we tend to cling is the idea of jealousy, of competition. That person, that object, that idea, that's mine. Go get your own. That ugliness, that jealousy We're going to put a pin in that balloon of jealousy with the following contemplation. How could this circumstance not be mine? The answer is not a thought, it is merely our relaxation. Variation of that last exercise. How could this circumstance not be me? What if we were not defined by our circumstances? What if we were not defined by our weather or our income or who happens to be in the government at the moment? And now we leave the realm of literal training and enter into the realm of the figurative. And you can see that the image of Shakyamuni, the historical Buddha, has been replaced by an image of a female Buddha comprised of red light. Enter the myth of Red Tata, the Buddha of enlightened action. A fundamentalist concerns themselves with whether or not the yidam or the visualized Buddha is real and often treats that Buddha as a god asking it for favors. Liberals do not do that. We simply use the various facets of the myth of the Buddha that we're working with to support our love of others and our letting go of self. Right now, we're going to use this image to help us let go of self. How could this circumstance, like Red Tata's Pure Land of Light, I'm sorry, let's try this again. How is this circumstance, like Red Tata's Pure Land of Light, seen, yet as non-graspable as a vast, empty void? Void here is not something spooky. It just is the idea of that. It's a simile of non-graspability. You can grasp a tennis ball. You can't effectively grasp the azure sky. So some things are easier to grasp than others. And what's the deal with the phrase Pure Land? According to Buddhist mythology, Pure Land is a Buddha's paradise. And we're playing with the idea that if you had a paradise and was comprised with light, it would be non-graspable, just like a rainbow, just like the reflection of the full moon upon the calm surface of a pond. You'd be able to see it, but you wouldn't be able to grasp it. For the next 2 breaths, let's play with this contemplation. Now it's time for us to train in contrived compassion. We're going to work with the same simile, that of Red Tata's paradise comprised of non-graspable light. This time we're reviewing it not through the paradigm of the wisdom practices of letting go, but through the compassion practices of meeting others' needs. So we're working with the simile. May, may the circumstance of each neighbor now be as ideal as Red Tata's Pure Land. So for the first 7 exercises, we're focusing on our circumstance. Now, just like a baby chick pecking its way out of a shell, we're going to expand our world beyond just ourselves and expand it to our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is anything we can perceive with our 5 senses. So wherever you are, whatever you can perceive, that for that moment is your neighborhood. At the top of the screen, you'll notice in highlight both index fingers. So let's touch each index finger to its thumb. That is the mudra, or contemplative gesture, we're going to play with for the next bit. So let's play with this exercise for 1 breath. Now we're going to widen our sphere of love beyond our neighborhood to encapsulate our entire world and all its beings, whether they walk, or crawl, or swim, or fly, whether they are human animals or non-human animals. We wish them well. So it goes without saying, if we're wishing them well, we're not going to pay others to exploit, torture, or murder them. May the circumstance of each earthling now be as ideal as Red Tata's Pure Land. Once again, you don't have to believe in it. In fact, I would encourage you not to believe in it. Believe it's just a rigidity. We're playing with a mental construct. Just as you can compare a man to the Cowardly Lion or a fraud to the Wizard of Oz, doesn't mean you have to believe in the Wizard of Oz. It means you are just referencing a cultural archetype. Let's play with that right now for 1 breath. May the circumstance of each earthling now be ideal as Red Tata's Pure Land. And now we get to our 3rd exercise of contrived compassion. We're going to expand our sphere of love beyond Earth, beyond our galaxy, beyond the universe to what some people hypothesize as the multiverse. May the circumstance of each being, of each world now be as ideal as Red Tata's Pure Land. And you could ask yourself, hey, if I don't really feel this, if I don't really feel compassion for all beings of all worlds, if I don't really give a flying fuck about their circumstance, and I recite these words anyway, silently and mentally, does that make me a big old nasty, disgusting, pussy little hypocrite? And the answer is no. No, because you're not trying to fool anybody. You're trying to train your heart. We do not train our heart by manipulating our emotions. That just multiplies neurosis. Rather, we train our mind, we train our heart by guiding our intention, our will, our volition. And how do we guide our volition? With our words. So this is the opposite of hypocrisy. Let us continue. We've completed 3 exercises of contrived compassion. We're now going to another set of contrived contemplations, 7 similes exploring the folly of clinging. By the way, if you enjoy this text, it's available for free download on the buddhajoy.org website. Let me quickly show that to you real quick. Let's see. There you go. Buddha Joy Meditation School. So, now these 7 contemplations are figurative. They're not literal. They're just designed to help us explore both impermanence and interdependence and how they can feed our tendency to let go. What could I cling to if each world now melted into this world? What could I cling to if this world now melted into this circumstance? What could I cling to if this circumstance now melted into this body? What could I cling to if this body now melted into this communication? What could I cling to if this communication now melted into this mind? Our job is not to perfectly visualize all the images alluded to by these words. Our job is simply to recite these words silently and mentally during the in-breath, and during the out-breath, as we whisper the mantra, relax as best we're able. If we do this, then everything else will take care of itself.
Have a good day. I'll see you.
We're going to switch mudras or finger gestures. Please touch the tip of the right ring finger to its thumb. With your left hand, please form a flipper. What could I cling to if this mind now melted into a non-graspable empty void? What could I cling to if I now experienced infinite openness? Now, you don't have to use a mala because I'm counting on the mala for you. But we're going to continue with this next exercise for the remainder of the mala. We're going to set aside our contrived contemplation, and now we're going to relax into spontaneous meditation. In Tibet, this is known as treksho, or relaxing into the nature of mind. So it's a very simple question. On the in-breath, we ask, how relax into the awareness of this? And just like we have done so far this morning, during the out-breath, we'll whisper the 6-syllable mantra of Vraitara while relaxing to the best of our ability. So what makes this different? Glad you asked. Notice the final pronoun in the question. How relaxing to the awareness of this. This is not what you choose. It's what spontaneously jumps out at you, either circumstantially or physically or auditorially or mentally, emotionally, perceptually, analytically, mnemonically, phantasmagorically, whatever you notice, whether it's pleasurable or painful, whether it's glorious or grotesque, our job is the same. Notice it on the in-breath, during the out-breath, relax to the best of our ability. All right. This concludes the first quarter of this morning's mantra meditation. We now cross the threshold into our second quarter, where instead of focusing upon conditions, we shall now consider our own bodies. Tokaz, leap over. Leap over what? Leap over boredom, because if we spend too much time just in relaxing the nature of mind, we'll get bored, we'll get restless. Now, once you've mastered the exercises in this collection of meditations, you can stay in spontaneous meditation for as long as you want, and then when you begin to feel your mind getting bored, then you can jump into a contemplation. But it's useful to go through this series of meditations while we are in the process of acquainting ourselves with the system. We now are going to perform the contrived contemplation of physical mindfulness. Please touch the tip of your left little finger to its thumb. With your right hand, please make a flipper. What body am I now experiencing? Notice we're not concentrating our body. We're just noticing it. Concentration infers a rigidity. Noticing infers a passivity, a fluidness. And that's what we want. Buddha's path is one of letting go. Becoming a Buddha or accomplishing a path is nothing more than mastering his techniques, being able to perform his techniques of mindfulness, insight, and love spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. So if what we're trying to do is master the art of letting go, then it should not surprise us that the path is not paved with rigidity. In fact, it could be argued rigidity is the antithesis of the path. Let's continue. How could this body fail to satisfy? And once again, this is not designed to make us hate our body, but to help us develop the visceral courage to let go of it. Now, that doesn't mean let yourself go. Your body is a tool. You have to use it wisely. You have to get the appropriate nutrition, appropriate exercise, appropriate rest, appropriate fresh air, and the like. We want our body to be an effective tool, not our warden, not our master. So let us play with contemplation. The rhetorical question, how could this body fail to satisfy? How could this body be quite dependent? How could this body always change? Every day we shed untold thousands of dead cells. Sometimes off our skin, sometimes in our exhalations, sometimes in our secretions, sometimes in our urine, sometimes in our bowels. But shed we do. In fact, what we so merrily call dust is the shed skin cells of mammals throughout the ages. And what we call soil is their manure after the pathogens have gone the way of Adam. How could this body always change? How could this body not be mine? Well, then whose is it, you might ask? Well, if we live in an interdependent universe, then it is arguably created by and affected by a myriad of things, beings, and phenomena. We are part of what some engineers would call a closed loop system. Everything benefits from and benefits us. And so, according to Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching, the key to progressing upon the path is not getting rid of your sense of self, but expanding it to incorporate the entire multiverse. How could this body not be mine? How could this body not be me? Remember, our job is not to believe or create some highfalutin metaphysics. Our job is just to ask the question and relax and let everything else take care of itself. Now we're going to enter the realm of the simile. For the next 2 breaths, how is this body like Red Tara's body of light, felt yet as non-graspable as a vast empty void? Once again, we're coming back to the idea of the Yadam, or the Deva, if you prefer Sanskrit, the idea of a mythic, archetypical Buddha, male or female, in this case female, whose paradise, body, mantra, and mind become figures for the non-graspability of our conditions, body, communication, and mind. So let's play with this for the next 2 breaths. Now we're going to play with 3 different contemplations of compassion. May the body of each neighbor now be as healthy as Red Tata's body of light. Let's adjust our finger position such that each middle finger is now touching its thumb. May the body of each earthling now be as healthy as Red Tata's body of light. Because really, who wakes up and says, damn it, I'm just too healthy for my own good. What I really need is a nice flu. That would be Jim Dandy right about now. No one in their right mind says that. Okay, so let's wish them well. Whether they walk or crawl or swim or fly, let's wish each earthling well. And by the way, if you haven't seen the movie Earthling, I highly recommend it. May the body of each being, of each world, now be as healthy as Red Tata's body of light. Yes, we're going full intergalactic, full Star Trek. Oh yeah. We're going to explore the idea of non-graspability, and then over the next 7 exercises, what could I cling to if each world now melted into this world? What could I cling to if this world now melted into this circumstance? What is your circumstance? Whatever you can perceive with your 5 senses. What could I cling to if this circumstance now melted into this body? What could I cling to if this body now melted into this communication? What could I cling to if this communication now melted into this mind? Just as we close an umbrella when we are not using it, likewise, as we collapse our perceptions downward in upon itself, it can enhance our experience of the futility of grasping. We're going to shift our hand positions again. Please touch the tip of your right index finger to your thumb with your left hand. Please make a flipper. What could I cling to if this mind now melted into a non-graspable, empty void? What could I cling to if I now experienced infinite openness? A great simile for this would be remembering 1999's The Matrix and what they called the construct. If you don't remember it, that's okay. It's available for free viewing on Netflix. For the remainder of the mala, we're going to relax into the nature of mind through the cunning use of spontaneous meditation. How relax into the awareness of this. Do not be put off by the simplicity of the set of techniques. Towards the very end of his life, the great non-sectarian tantric saint Patrul Rinpoche of Tibet taught that all one needs to directly accomplish full enlightenment is four things: one yadam, one mantra, and the two bodhicittas of love and letting go. That's it. That's all you need. We're now preparing to enter the third quarter of today's mantra meditation. This system, though easy, is effective. There are some who insist that if it was practiced 4 times a day for 7 consecutive days in a retreat setting, full alignment can be accomplished swiftly. Please touch the tip of your left ring finger to its thumb, and with your right hand, please make a flipper. Now, making a flipper is completely different than flipping someone off. That's a different gesture. Okay, we worked with circumstance, we worked with our body, and now we're going to work again with the letter C, this time our communication that we experience, whether we're receiving it or emitting it, verbally or non-verbally, deliberately or accidentally. We begin with mindfulness training. What communication am I now experiencing? How could this communication fail to satisfy? Hey, ever try to cheer someone up and you only make them worse? Ever try to calm someone down and you only make them angrier? Then you've experienced the heartache of failed communication or unsatisfying communication. How could this communication be quite dependent? For instance, it's dependent upon causes, and conditions, and components, and conceptions. In fact, you may recall we chanted that at the beginning. No, Virginia, this is not a task of belief. This is not an object of rote memorization. This is simply an apparatus through which we train the mind to let go in the most wonderful and sustainable way. How could this communication always change? It's a very ironic contemplation because the nature of verbal communication is one of vibration, and vibration is one of change. Yes, we communicate with our mouths and we perceive communications with our ears, but we also communicate with our bodies and perceive those nonverbal communication with our eyes. And we also communicate olfactorily. We might not be aware of it and may communicate on a subconscious level, but communicate it does. How could this communication not be mine? How could this communication not be me? How could this communication, and now we're going to actually adjust the screen so you can take a look at what we like to call the mantra rosary, or the mantra mala. Just as we take a string of beads and we tie the two ends together to form a ring or a necklace, we can arrange the 6 syllables of Red Tara's mantra in a circle. Why do we do that? What is the advantage of that? In a word or in a phrase, Russian nesting dolls. We mentioned the 4 facets of the Adam, the paradise, the body, the mantra, and mind. Well, what if you could organize them concentrically, like the rings of a bullseye, or like, as I've mentioned before, Russian nesting dolls. Outermost, you would have the paradise. Then you would have the body. At the level of the heart, within the body, horizontally, you would have the mantra rosary. And in the center of that mantra rosary, you would have the single syllable representing the mind. Now, there are many, many hundreds, if not thousands of people over the ages who said that's very mystical and that's very powerful and it's very useful for causing the subtle energies to coalesce within the central channel, but that could be a trap. It's not our job to say, I must coalesce my energy within the central channel. For the inferences, I can only meditate when that happens. The answer is no. We get to learn how to meditate when energy is coalesced and when our energy is scattered. We need to be able to meditate when it's quiet and when it's loud, when we're comfortable, when we're uncomfortable. Otherwise, we will build for ourselves something akin to a gilded cage. And that's not liberation. That's imprisonment. The mastery of Buddhist techniques of mindfulness, insight, love allow us to practice them in any circumstance, at any time, in any condition. How is this communication, like Red Tara's mantra of light, heard yet as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. People can say kind things to us that if we were a cat would make us purr. People can say cruel things to us that can haunt us for years. But the irony is that communication is fleeting. It's evanescent. It's temporary. Like the dew you see on the leaves of a plant in the morning, but by noon is gone. Let's explore the non-graspable nature of our communication for the next 2 breaths. No, not all sects of Buddhism use mantra, but they all use some form of verbal practice, whether it's singing or intoning or chanting, whether it's a mantra or a bija or a tone or a text or a prayer or a sutra or a sutta or a discourse or a commentary or a shastra. Every sect has chanting. Why is that? Some people are blindly superstitious, yes. Some people are Machiavellian and twisted, and they might actually set people up to do poorly in the past so that by contrast they would look so much better. Yes, that's a dark side of human nature. But there are some pragmatic men and women throughout the ages who only do things because they find it to be useful, skillful, helpful. That's why I share this 6-syllable mantra of Red Tara with you. Yes, this mucus for you. Okay, let's change hands. Let's touch each little finger to its thumb. Boy, I am just sounding so charming, don't I? Now we go from contrived contemplation to contrived compassion. May the communication of each neighbor now be as skillful as Red Tara's mantra of lights. May the communication of each earthling now be as skillful as Red Tara's mantra of lights. May the communication of each being of each world now be as skillful as Red Tara's mantra of lights. Yes, my friend, there are many Buddhist fundamentalists who believe they're supposed to pretend everything they hear is mantra, and they think that makes them spiritual, and they hope that'll make them a Buddha. Between you and me, one liberal to another, that's just a form of concentration, of rigidity. It makes our world very, very small. It undermines our mindfulness and substitutes it with a very dangerous form of contrivance. That is why there's always been a minority of liberals who've said, no, these instructions are figurative. The best way to understand a metaphor is to break it down to its simile. How could the communication of each being of each world now be as skillful as Redtada's mantra of light? Because you would imagine that a fully enlightened Buddha's speech would be terribly skillful. If you're unsure how to chant the 6-syllable mantra of Redtada, then I recommend you find a first lesson or a first class video of a prior series, or better yet, attend a live webinar. The first Monday webinar in the series beginning December, first week of December. Go to the website, register for that. That way you'll be sure to master the mantra. Let's continue. We're going to return to contrived contemplation, helping us to let go of all things being as a phenomena. What could I cling to if each world now melted into this world? What could I cling to if this world now melted into this circumstance? What could I cling to if this circumstance now melted into this body? What could I cling to if this body now melted into this communication? What could I cling to if this communication now melted into this mind? Please touch the tip of your right middle finger to its thumb, and with your left hand, make a flipper. What could I cling to if this mind now melted into a non-graspable empty void? What could I cling to if I now experienced infinite openness? For the remainder of the mala, we're going to work with Triksha's spontaneous slice through, which is another way of saying the spontaneous meditation of resting in the nature of mind. Oi. No, always not some super spiritual one-syllable mantra. It's just a Jewish grunt, brought to you by many, many generations of Hebrew inbreeding. Please touch the tip of your left index finger to its thumb. With your right hand, please form a flipper. We now enter the fourth quarter of our mantra meditation, where we explore mind. We begin with mindfulness. What mind am I now experiencing? And now we explore dukkha, or dissatisfaction. How could this mind fail to satisfy? You know, when you're trying to go to bed at night, your mind says, hey, what's that? Trying to fall asleep? Quick, let me show you everything you've ever feared ever. Thanks, mind. Thanks a lot. How could this mind be quite dependent? It's been said by many people that no man is an island. And forgive me if that sounds trite and hackneyed, but it's true. we can often feel isolated. We can often feel alone and separate and cut off by the very nature of physics, whether on a grand scale of cosmology or the minute scale of the quanta. Separateness is an illusion. Everything affects everything else. There are some misguided, good-hearted people who feel that if they're truly spiritual, nothing will affect them ever. No. If things don't affect you, then you're just cut off from your own mindfulness. The question is not do we become impervious to our perceptions, but are we being controlled by our experiences? If we experience defensiveness, do we allow that defensiveness to control our choices or our utterances or our behavior? Or are we aware of our defensiveness and relax into its ungraspable nature? So then we might practice the sincere, centered humility, which helps us to truly grow and evolve. In Tibet, there's a phrase which can be translated as naked awareness. When I first heard of it, I was hoping it was a reference to dirty, dirty tantra. Nope, not so much. It's a reference to being vulnerable to that which you are mindful of. Our ability to evolve is directly proportional to the vulnerability we get to our experience. If we do something and it hurts someone's feelings and they start to cry, and we are completely vulnerable to the pain that they're experiencing, it will evolve our communication habits on a subconscious, visceral level far more efficiently than could ever be done in a cognitive, strategic way. Life is messy. Evolution is messy. We were born covered in filth and screaming. So the uncomfortableness that comes with the vulnerability should not surprise us horribly. How could this mind always change? How could this mind not be mine? How could this mind not be me? Come, let us enter the realm of the simile. How is this mind like Red Tata's Tom of Light, aware, yet as non-graspable as a vast, empty void? Tom is simply the Bija mantra, the one-syllable mantra that symbolizes the Buddha's mind. Or I should say, perhaps, this Buddha's mind. But of course, the key here is aware, yet as non-graspable. Please touch the tip of each ring finger to its thumb. Join me now as you practice contrived compassion. May the mind of each neighbor now be as wise and loving as Red Tata's Tom of Light. May the mind of each earthling now be as wise and loving as Red Tata's Tom of Light. Our humanity has far more cleverness than it has wisdom. That needs to change. If humanity is going to evolve, we need the wisdom that sheds the cleverness of competition for the wisdom of cooperation. If we do it right, Earth can be very sustainable and humanity can live and thrive for a very long time. If we're blinded by competitiveness, fear, the illusion of scarcity, we might do great, or I should say we might continue to perform great atrocities. May the mind of each earthling now be as wise and loving as Red Tata's Tom of Light. Huh, that's unfortunate. That should have said something else. Oh boy, this is difficult. There we go. Much better. Let's try it again. May the mind of each being of each world now be as wise and loving as Red Tata's Tom of Light. Let us now perform the 7 contemplations that use metaphor to help us explore the futility of clinging. What could I cling to if each world now melted into this world? What could I cling to if this world now melted into this circumstance? What could I cling to if this circumstance now melted into this body? What could I cling to if this body now melted into this communication? What could I cling to if this communication now melted into this mind? We experience this type of perceptual collapse whenever we fall asleep at night. The question is not whether this happens, the question is whether our mindfulness is sharp enough to detect it. Please touch the tip of your right little finger to its thumb while your left hand forms a flipper. What could I cling to if this mind now melted into a non-graspable empty void? What could I cling to if I now experienced infinite openness? And the inferences, if there's nothing to grasp at, no body, no speech, no mind, just infinite openness. There's nothing to be grasped, there's nothing to grasp with. Let's play with this. For the remainder of the mala, we're going to relax into the nature of mind. How relax into the awareness of this. Let us conclude today's mantra meditation with a simple chant that we'll use the bookend chant. May each being everywhere practice mindfulness and sadhan love, spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. What is the path? Mindfulness, insight, and love. What does it mean to accomplish the path? What it means to be able to practice it spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Thank you, my friends, for your time and your kind attention. If you have any questions, please write them out in great detail below. If they're good questions, I'll do my best to answer them via video sometime this week. Of course, if you have many, many questions, I invite you to register for the next series of live webinars so that you can ask your questions in real time through your webcam. Be you and yours. Be healthy and happy. Bye-bye now.